Good morning, everyone. My name is Benoît Quevrin. I'm the coordinator of the Passive House platform, the PMP. Just a couple of words about this platform. It's a non-profit making association. It's very typical in Belgium, and it's very important in the sector. It's very important regarding what I'm going to say. It's a non-profit making association, which means that our objective is not to make money, but to give advice to people. There are too few of them in the construction sector. There are two values. First, independence and scientific accuracy. You will receive objective pieces of advice, never influenced by any type of lobbying. So that's the advantage. And the cows have nothing to do with me. So I'm here to talk about the training available in the Brussels region. So not just what our platform does, but what I've seen, what I've discovered in very general terms. And you'll see that it's rather complex. Why? Well, the first thing is that we move from a context that is based on a voluntary basis, or where people are obliged to build passive buildings, and the people who come to a training do not have the same level. They have a very different levels indeed, so it's very high complexity. They are obliged to attend the training, so it changes the context, the background. To build a building, our objective is to cover the whole sector to the extent that the client, but also the architects, the design offices. So that's the design side, then the contractor side, and all the political side, the political framework, the regulations, etc. And we're going to have several sectors again. For the clients, we'll make a difference between residential and tertiary sector. Private people who want to build a passive house don't have the same requirements as someone in the tertiary sector who wants to build a high tower. Regarding the design, the architects and the design officers, it's not the same. The framework is the political side, and then also the urban planners and notary publics. Those are also people who need information. And then for the builders themselves, the constructors themselves, you see the different blocks. All right. So I'll start with the client first. This is not training as such, but they need to be, let's say, we need to raise their awareness. Let's take that word rather than training, it's awareness raising through visits and leaflets and brochures for residential owners. Then for the tertiary sector, we are going to create guidance, specific guidance, and we receive subsidies from the region to offer free guidance. It's not for, we're not going to say to a group who wants to build a tower, a whole tower, that they will have to pay €5 for the training. But the customization is very important, and that's one of the key success factors, and it works very well. It's very much appreciated. And that's for the owners, the client. Awareness raising as well, because living in a passive building might be something different, might be a different experience. And I would like to share my experience here. If you're interested, an architect or engineer are not necessarily the best person to explain how to live in a house, in a passive house. And there are problems like never open your doors, never open your windows, be careful, the temperature is 20 degrees, don't heat more than 20 degrees, otherwise you're going to consume a lot, etc. So There are some people who don't live well in a passive house because they were told not to put the heating on. So awareness raising is needed. We realized that sometimes it's better to have less information. These people live in a passive house, just like that, and it works well. It's fine. And in terms of real training, what do we have in the Brussels region? We have the design and constructors cycles. We have cycles of twice 5 days, and there are other cycles available as well. Why do we have standard cycles and advanced cycles? People are obliged to get trained now. They have different levels, and this is why it's difficult to accommodate all these people and then to explain, give them general explanations and meet their expectations. We also have focus training sessions. The so-called focus training in the company or outside of company will explain on a very specific request how to calculate a thermal bridge or whatever. So these are training sessions that are available in Brussels too. Then guidance, just like for the clients, we have specific guidance for architects and design offices. And I think this is one of the keys, really, the customization of guidance. Personalized, customized guidance is very important. A person can ask questions, specific questions, personal questions during 1 hour and will receive a lot of information regarding his project. This is very successful. It works very well. Then the roundtable to end with. This is a delicate point. We invite all kinds of stakeholders for a roundtable, like, for example, domestic hot water or whatever, and then we will only focus on that topic during 2 hours. The objective is to get information, because information is not just top-down, but also bottom-up. And passive buildings are so successful in Brussels, probably because they are personalized. It's personalized in the Brussels region. Antoine Cré said it earlier on. Passive, it's 15 kilowatts per hour, and that's it. And it exists in Germany as well. There are thousands of buildings that have already been built like that. It's a reference that is well known, but it has been adapted as well. We've taken into consideration the local sector to adapt these rules, which means that these people got the ownership of the Belgian passive label. I think we have people from PHI here. I can reassure them. The passive label from Brussels in terms of consumption is exactly the same. We've just changed a few things to get adapted, but the buildings are going to consume the same as a passive building. They're just better adapted to the local situation. That's the only difference. Now for the design offices, they have more advanced training on steam, vapor distribution, or whatever. The requirements are such that they are now encouraged to analyze some parameters a bit more than in the past, like a dynamic simulation that is imposed in Germany. For the constructors, it's the same. You have 2 different cycles, and this is quite recent. Same focus, guidance again. For the political framework, we offer support and guidance, and I really believe that a neutral body is necessary to guide politics. And here you see gray areas. That's things that we do not have in Brussels yet. And these are points that should be developed more in the future, like training of notary publics, urban planners, etc. For the refurbishment, the idea would be to insulate from the outside. It's not possible in Brussels because urban planners wouldn't agree with that. So training is needed there as well. And for the blue-collar workers, we also have specific sectors, very focused and technical sectors. We hope we'll be able to make progress, then that information will flow down to the blue-collar workers as well. So all that is fine. This is the second point of my intervention here. We need to favor interactions. It's not enough to train the clients only or the contractors only, etc. What matters is to favor exchanges between the different sectors that do not know one another very well because it's quite new. Even if passive is the logic evolution, some dialogues will have to be started. For example, the 5-day designer cycle, you have one common day. There's one common day with the constructors. They will work on details, a balcony, for example, and architects and contractors are going to make 3D models to see whether it works. And all these days have a very good rating at the end of the day. They give 9 out of 10 because they really think it's very important to have the opportunity to discuss together. Another type of link would be the client and the designer, or the professionals. These are site visits, people who explain what they do, they explain their work. I mean, you see that it's not always easy to explain your work to the client, even if you know exactly what you're doing, etc., etc. Then the previous slide was for the people working the active life. Here we're talking about future professionals, professionals to be, those who are being trained. And you see that we have more grey boxes here in universities, in schools, architecture school. We have now some lessons on thermal energy and thermal bridges, etc. And they can calculate thermal bridges, etc., even if it's still very rare. You see those grey blocks. So we have some construction professors who are motivated and get the information themselves to spread it to their pupils, their students. But too often they are young graduates who come for additional training because they have not been sufficiently trained on these issues during their studies. Next item, it's a global vision. I was talking about the designer's cycles. The purpose now is to oblige people to do passive buildings, and sometimes the word is ill-appropriate. The objective is to build sustainable buildings, and being able to explain the people where we are, what about the climate. Europe says that, Belgium says that, or Brussels says that. Why? Mobility, environment, materials, etc. People won't understand all this if you only give information about build passive and that's it. So it doesn't make sense to focus on passive buildings only. And this is why in the designer cycles training we're also going to talk about PHPP software, but also global vision, choice of materials, comfort, details, pathologies, etc. We're not going to give very technical lectures. It will be mainly energy training, but it is important for these people to have a general vision, to know exactly why they are asked to build passive and why they are asked to change their habits. They should understand where it's coming from, why we're doing this, and what they will have to be careful about. I think Grégoire said earlier on, it's good that we didn't take PB because they didn't work. The very high energy efficient buildings were not giving good results. So we took the PHPP software. We're in Belgium. We're a very large country, as you know. We have 3 regions, and if an architect is working on 3 different regions, he will have to use 7 or 8 different software programs. So it's quite questionable, and the sector is trying to put pressure to simplify, to facilitate the architect's life. It's an advantage and a drawback. In France, I think there is a separation between the architects and the energy office. In Belgium, it's just the opposite. Very often, the architect is asked to calculate the energy efficiency of the building. The wage is not going to increase. He has to use 6 different software programs, and so we need to facilitate their life, and this is why we have a project. The idea would have to be a central tool so that people are not obliged to copy all their surfaces, surface areas, etc. You can use a central system for PHPP or for a simulation or whatever. So that's one example, but simplification is important. We need to facilitate the designers and the constructors' lives. Now, in terms of cooperation, there's a lot on our plate. Here, put some figures for Brussels, but I think Charlene will tell you more later on. Here we're talking about the number of units to be trained for the constructors, not to mention the architects. It's 26,000 units. If you have a class of 15 people, it means 1,700 training sessions for 2015. So I don't know what I'm doing here. I should be there training people already. Now, all stakeholders will have to do something. So there's no real competition issue in Brussels, but rather coordination issue in Brussels. So it's very important to launch a dialogue. But in terms of trainings, there's no competition. The CDR is going to work, PNP, that's us, the independent training organizations, so the region, the facilitators of the region itself will organize trainings. We will also have train-the-trainers sessions. It will be important to organize the train-the-trainers sessions as well, to cascade down the information. Self-training as well. Very often you have 3 people from a company who go to the training, and then they go back to their company and spread the information. So we hope this is going to work too. And then the political support. Don't want to blame anyone there, but without a clear political support in terms of training, would never be able to meet the demand. And these people will have to be informed before 2015. So there's a lot on our plate. Thank you very much indeed.